Hello, everybody. We're waiting on Mel to jump on here, and we'll be jumping into the discussion tonight. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing good? Just sent you the invite, Mel.
What's up?
Oh, just, another fun day. Let's see.
It's been a long day. Oh, don't do that.
I don't know how to make it not do.
You better switch that back.
Don't yell at me.
Everybody's about to get the unedited version. I've been going since 5 a.m.
I know that feeling.
It's been a long day. Traveling, airing, training, airing, feeding. You know how it goes.
Yeah, we haven't had too busy of a day, I'd say. However, it was a terrible idea to take Lucy to Lowe's Home Improvement to do training today.
Uh-oh. How'd that go?
And training-wise went great. I just kind of scheduled to be there an hour and almost 2.5 hours later because everybody in the third, brothers, cousins, aunt, uncle had to love on Lucy, which normally if I have an OB or somebody, if I've got like a task, I'm like, no, thanks, but no thanks. But
yeah,
it was good for Lucy to have all the attention today.
Sometimes that outweighs the time restraints and everything else.
Yeah.
I imagine it would have been super busy with the holiday shopping, Black Friday, all that stuff, coming off the heels of that.
It was surprisingly dead when I pulled in the parking lot because.
Please tell me that's not my internet. Is that, you're frozen? Am I frozen?
No, you're not frozen. Am I frozen? Now you're frozen. Hey, you're back. Oh. Mel will be back.
So let me do a quick thing and we'll see how the internet goes.
We'll make it work.
Yeah, hopefully it's not, won't freeze up on us. I have 5G, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it could also, it could just be TikTok today.
Of course.
But in the parking lot, it looked really dead. But when I got in the store, I think if your van had 17 seats, you put 27 people in it to go to Lowe's.
The clown vehicles.
It was packed today.
Honestly, traveling for the last couple days, it hasn't been, as far as the roads, it hasn't been too bad, surprisingly. So
that's good.
I haven't done any shopping though. No Black Friday, none of that.
I got a couple things on Amazon order list, but
you waiting for tomorrow on Cyber Monday?
I'm going to see if there's any difference in price. A lot of the stuff I'm looking at is already gone on sale or something of the sort. But also, last week, I made some pretty big purchases. So I'm kind of like,
I haven't done any.
so
The next big purchase I'm making is trading my car in. So
what are you trading for?
I want the new 4Runner. What I drive, when I pull up on scene and what I drive, I catch so much hell. I can't even tell you how much hell I catch when I pull up on scene in my car. And then here comes Bailey's Mr. Pretty, and they're like, was he smoking a cigar while he watched his movie, drinking his scotch while he was back there? I mean, I hear it all.
So I'll say this, and we can jump in. We'll kick this off in the SAR discussion. I got deployed to a mudslide in the western part of the country, and we got there. The vehicle given to us from EM, because we had like a 2-hour drive from where we got dropped at a little like regional airport. That vehicle broke down, and we were like in the outskirts of the mudslide area, so it was kind of vacant. And we did the search dog thing. We looked in cars that potentially could have had keys in them. We were just gonna bust the window out and like leave you a note. Sorry about your luck. The only vehicle we found that was not flooded and had keys in it was a limousine. So we put 6 Belgian Malinois, 6 people, and all of our search gear, already kind of muddy, and a Cadillac limousine, and rolled out.
Hey, whatever works. You know what they say is like, as a handler, I am the canine chauffeur. So you took that to a whole nother meeting, honey.
Yeah, it was quite comical. We rolled up to the EM thing in a muddy covered limousine. They were like, "Who the hell is this?" And all of us come piling out, and they're like, "We gave y'all a car." And I was like, "Yeah, it's like 30 minutes away. It just quit running. I don't know what your deal is."
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I'd hear the end of that.
It was a good time.
It
was a good time.
Stories.
I couldn't tell you who.
Lots of stories.
But it was full of mud by the time we got done because we kept that thing the whole time.
Oh, I bet you they were cussing.
Probably.
I would have been.
With the EM guys out there, we're like, all right, y'all have a good day.
See ya. Have fun with that. I bet you they were cussing you too. Just a chain reaction.
I've been cussed worse. I think the worst I got cussed out was when we broke into a Honda dealership to steal an outboard motor because we hit a street sign and tore the prop off of it. So we had to get a new one.
I'm sure that went up the ranks real quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They were like, so how are you still moving? And I was like, oh, we broke into a Honda place like half a click from where we were. We paddled over there because we found it on Google Maps and the motor worked, so we left with it. I got the VIN number. I got the serial number for you, though.
Just so you know.
It happens.
Yeah. Well, that check was wrote real quick.
Yeah.
And then some, with some padding on it.
I pay taxes here. I can afford to do that. That's what I tell them.
Yeah, I don't think that went over very well. Who have we got up in here?
So, for those of y'all in here who don't know Mel, she is based out of Oklahoma, is a current SAR dog handler with her dog Bailey. I thought it was quite comical. I realized after the fact that we had passed each other here at the Hickory Airport. I was like, man, she looked really familiar, but I don't know why. Like, I don't know anybody around here that runs dogs anymore. Then after y'all left, I was like, oh. I know who that was now. And then that
was Mel.
The crew that you flew with was the crew that I flew with for the better part of the day. So.
Mm-hmm. And amazing people. Amazing.
Oh, yeah. They're super cool dudes.
Yeah, Operation Airdrop was just such a pivotal point and with our logistics and everything else, but just crucial to the overall situation going on there. And
There were
meeting everybody, and it was nice to be able to meet everybody and the president and of Operation Airdrop. And
there was a couple hiccups, growing pains more or less from a civilian standpoint moving into an emergency management operation, but those guys, everybody kind of adapted it with all the changes and rocked on with it, so it was great.
They did it, I mean, in all honesty, with the magnitude of what it was, and I mean, you're going to expect the hiccups. I don't care if you're, are well versed in it or not. That kind of unexpected magnitude, there's going to be some sort of learning curve. But I really do feel like they managed it very well.
Yeah, they did.
Well.
When I got there on day one, there was a very limited organization to the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just went up there to ask about where I could drop off some dog supplies, like dog food and stuff. And by the end of day one, I was in a helicopter riding up and down the mountain, getting people out.
They're like, we're utilizing him. You're not going anywhere.
Evacuating people. And then I would help set up like the logistic stuff at the hangar because we were running out of room quick in that little office.
Uh-huh.
So
did that. I remember because we were there for the debrief. I think it was one of the first debriefs, was it not?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they were, like I said, they were very crucial in everything. And of course, I think it was organized chaos at that point because we were there so early on and everything as well. We were still trying to figure out, had it not been for them, we wouldn't have been able to be dropped in, and we would have been even days later getting into where we needed to go because trying to figure out how to even get there logistically without being dropped in by helicopters.
Oh yeah, and the NASCAR teams that sent their twin engine jet drive helicopters up there were definitely a helping hand because there's only so much you can do with the little Robinson 44s and stuff. So having those bigger birds are a huge difference.
And so Carl Edwards was our private pilot that flew us from Oklahoma to North Carolina. He had actually just got done. I think he had just did the pace car in one of the races, and then left there and got in his private plane and picked us up and took us back. So a lot of people behind the scenes that made a lot of things happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this, for an all volunteer project that stood up right there, so it was quite an undertaking. Mm-hmm. I'll give them that. So I guess we'll start with dog selection, if that's where you want to start.
Sure. Ask away.
So a lot of people, as well as I do, there's a giant misconception of you can just go grab a dog and put them in work. Or you can just go get a German Shepherd or Golden Retriever, a Collie, whatever have it, whatever dog you typically see, that you can just go down to the shelter, get one, and put them in the work. So, I mean, you and I both know that's very, very far between that actually happens. So, as I've told a lot of people, selection of the dog is far more important than the work that you want to do with the dog. Because you can want to do certain types of work all day long, but if you don't get the right dog, then there's nothing going to be working. So,
well, I think with selection of any canine, the foundation of that selection is kind of the same. We're looking at hunt, we're looking at drive, we're looking at nerve, We're looking at, the environmentals, that how well they, bounce back from different environmentals, which is, obviously the nerve strength of the dog. Do they have enough drive to where that can override that lack of nerve? And get them through some different situations without completely shutting down. The hunt, the willingness to actually go out there and continuously hunt, and not give up, not get frustrated, again, not shut down. So all those things are completely necessary especially in search and rescue, but in working dogs, you need all of those, to have that foundation. And then once you select that dog, then it's all about, what is that dog telling me is its job? Because like you said, it can be, well, I want to do this with this dog. Well, I can say that you can train a lot of dogs to do what you want it to do, but what comes natural to that dog is in my eyes, is the best way. So I would rather work with a dog's strengths that he is showing me, versus pushing what I want on that dog and making it a harder job as a trainer to get what I want.
And absolutely. And Lee asked, do most people start SAR dogs as puppies? That is kind of like any working dog. It's up to the trainer. Personally, I want the dog about 6 months old, because if I have a good relationship with the breeder or wherever I'm getting the dog from, they're going to be kind of brought up in a good, stable environment to begin with. And at 6 months old, I'm already going to see what is there and what isn't there. Now, there's certain things you can do with the puppy to enhance it, but
yeah, I think it does give you a good glance of what you're looking at. So for me personally, when it comes to puppies, it's a gamble. You can have the genetics, you can have the great lineage, but it doesn't dictate that you're 100% going to get a solid dog. And so at that age, what I would do if I'm starting to say that I want to progress this dog into a working field, at that age, I would start exposing it to the environmentals, and get them solid in that, and kind of incorporate some throwaways, which big puppy fetch, whatever. If I was starting a puppy that I had in mind to carry into, again, a working line, i.e. human remains, when I'm feeding or when I'm playing, I would have some remains in around that area so they can associate those positives with that scent and imprint them as soon as possible, which would make my job easier down the line. I tend to like 12 to 16-month-olds personally. And from a selection standpoint, I've done my evaluation, I've done my selection, I've done my short list X, Y, and Z from that age, and then I can, okay, this is the dog, and then I can go from there. It's just less time, less money when you get a dog anywhere between those ages versus taking it up from a puppy.
And I think one of the misconceptions people have is they see these law enforcement dogs getting retired at 7 to 9 years old. And, they're thinking, well, if I get a dog that's closer to 2 years old, I'm going to be able to work them for 5 years. Where that's not the case when it comes to the search and rescue dog industry. I just saw, is it last year or the year before, I think Virginia Task Force 1 retired like a 14-year-old dog.
Mm-hmm.
Who is still alive and worked as a HRD dog, worked very well up until that age point. But these dogs, SAR dogs, are typically far better taken care of than most of your law enforcement canines, just because they're typically privately owned, and a private person is going to take more time and more money and more care into the dog than an agency. That's just, a common misconception with law enforcement canines, that they're, they got an endless budget, take care of the dog, and that's not so much the case. A lot of that just comes down to administration decisions of, SWAT team gets all the cool things, canine, yeah, go, can you use this rope as a lead?
The departments and agencies, and not to downgrade them or talk bad, but they look at canines as more of a tool, and that's
Yes.
it. Where when you get into search and rescue, you get into more of the volunteer and the privately owned, and it's very hard for those people to view that dog as just a tool. It is a tool. It is a tool for the means, right? But it's also part of our lives. There's a bond there. It's part of our family, X, Y, and Z. So that initial care and staying on top of things that is typically, I agree with, more on that side than it is with the department side, because they are tools. They're not pets. They're not this. They are a tool, period.
Yeah. And I always got kind of picked at because I ran, and when we talked after you left North Carolina, all of my search dogs were all Malinois. And I'm one of the few people in this area that ran all Malinois for a search dog. And I always got picked on because one of them, they would come out of the rubble pile and he'd be limping funny. And I'd be like, hey, man, shut up, quit limping. Like, go back in the field and work. Like, you ain't broke, you ain't bleeding. Like, go on, go do your job. And one of my co-handlers in my team, her dog would come out and he'd like halfway limp or stumble, and she's like, we gotta go to the vet and get some x-rays. And I was like, you killing me, on real, you killing me.
I mean, I do the same thing with Bailey after every deployment. I take him straight to my vet, and he basically gets a checkup, and I want to make sure that my dog is taken care of. I want to make sure, I mean, even with my vet background, this, that, and the other, I still want it to go deeper than that, because I want to take care of, i.e. my tool, and my partner. I want him at his optimal.
Oh yeah, we always all of our dogs get large joint x-rays in the spring and full blood panels in the fall. So if anything did arise, we always had something to fall back on, like, well, this is what it was last year, this is our blood panel, and he had no recent deployments during this time frame, and here's his diet of work. And I think that's one thing people kind of screw up when it comes to their dog selection, is they look at all the genetic background of the dog and all the components and all the plug and play features that the litters and previous litters and mom and dad have, but they fail to look at the dog directly in front of them. They see 7-8 generations of work, and they got the dog in front of them. They're like, well, I don't really like this dog, or I don't like X on this dog. Well, is X something that you can work the dog through? Is that X a factor in just, you're meeting this dog in a 5-minute window for the first time? Chill out.
Right.
Lucy, my new sport dog, she's much more handler sensitive than Obi. Obi's like a third world country brick tank. You just point, shoot, click, have at it, homie, and he'll just work. And I can fuss at Obi all day long, and he's like, oh, yep, screwed up, got you, Dad. We'll fix it on the next run. And Maestro, which was his half brother, was my search dog, was the same way. I mean, he was just such a point click dog for me. So it was very easy in the selection process to pick him. But other people have had major complications when it comes to getting their dog, because they're so hung up on small little tiny details that can be fixed in training and time.
I was say, but that tells me they don't know what they're looking for, and they don't know what they're looking at. So that's exactly what that tells me. Because if it's a science on, again, rating the hunt and the drive and the nerve and and calculating that out. That's going to tell you what kind of dog you have. It's going to tell you what time frame. You have a lower scoring dog over here. Okay, well, yeah, you can work through these things. Do you have the time? And do you have the want to work through those things? Or do you take the higher ranking dog, scoring dog, and it's basically the plug and play? You know, I'll be upfront and honest. Bailey was not a plug and play. He was a project dog. He was the underdog. And it drove, and I'm so grateful in that because it made me, he made me a better trainer, but he also made me a better handler because he was such the underdog, and I had to work through so many things with him, and I had to approach him and his training so differently. I trained the dog in front of you. He made me train him.
Yeah,
Not all
Lucy's
the other ones. Yeah. And it made me a better trainer and handler because I had to really come out of the box with him. And so when, everything hit and certifications and this, that, and the other, it was amazing because everybody was like, there's no way you can make this dog. Well, sit back and watch. It took me a while. Yeah, it took me a while, but now ask me if I'd do it again. Probably not. I don't have the time and I don't have that gumption to really take that project dog that's not the plug and play. I've said if I bring in another dog, it's going to be it's going to have everything I want, everything that I'm looking at.
When I took over the search team, I kind of changed all the handlers except for one's mindset when it came to looking for their dogs. I said, look, I'm not looking for a dog that can do sharp obedience. I'm not looking for a dog that can do XYZ. I'm looking for 3 things. I want strong hunt drive. Do they recover well when something spooks them? And can anybody standing here pick the dog up without getting mauled or the dog freaking out? If they can do those 3 things, I'm good with it because we can build the dog.
Yeah. But you also have, I wholeheartedly agree with building, right? But there's a point to where, do you build from here or do you build from here?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And that's where evaluation and selection of the right canine is important. So, and knowing what you're looking at.
One of the constant problems we had, I felt like, with some of the dogs is some people wanted to take the diamond in the rough and make it a search dog. And so we spent 2.5 years working this dog through things other dogs just blew out of the water in 6 months. And those handlers got frustrated with it. And those handlers were also people that wanted their name in the paper. And
yeah,
I always said you can tell the handlers who want their names in the paper because they have that sob story with this dog. And they'll have everything under the sun wrong with the dog, but they're still going to work it and tell everybody about it. And some of the new handlers that came in, I'm like, look, you can select whatever dog you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But we're here to work. We're here to do things. We're here to solve problems, and we have to do that on a time frame. So do what you want, but I'm not going to invest a bunch of money into your dog if your dog's not worth investing money in. Because
right,
we were a state agency, so I had a little bit more funding per se than the civilian group down the street to send people places and go have fun and do things and learn. And, Dwayne said, starting good genetics, solid foundation, environmental management, 100%. How do we create aversion? Dragging the dog through the situation. How do we build the dog? Break that thing down in some Lego pieces and go from there.
A good dog, a good solid dog that you choose out of the right evaluation and selection, you're not going to have to break down. Yeah. To a huge extent. You're always going to have to break it down a dog to a point, but I think when, again, I keep saying is if you choose the right one, it's just going to make your job easier, and that time frame is, that window is shorter. And you know, when you have the project dogs or the people that go, well, like I said, that have reached out to me and said, well, I want to be a canine handler, and I've got a dog. And one of my first things to them is, no, you don't have a dog.
Nope.
You know, so it's when you see the difference between I've got a dog, i.e. pet, versus a true working dog, it's night and day, absolute night and day.
Oh, absolutely, Dwayne. Working with like-minded individuals. When I ran the canine division, I intentionally put administrative people around me that challenged me, but also had the same long-term vision I did and ideology I did. We were going to have damn good dogs. And our big thing our group had on, this is why, you know, one of the things I want to talk about too is we did a lot of air scent and a lot of trailing and a lot of leapfrogging.
Leapfrogging is important, especially for the canine and the overall health, and just, you know, the deployment in itself, because, you know, if you've got a hiker that's gone in 5-6 miles, if not more, and the environmentals are at play, hot, low humidity, this, that, and the other, and they're air scenting or they're trailing, that dog is going to be wiped. And so leapfrogging and having multiple canines that you can pull from to just sit there and be able to lead, it gives them that break and that recharge that they need to be able to do the job faster instead of just relying on one.
I was talking to you the other day. We tried to send one trailing dog and 2 air scent dogs at a minimum to every deployment because the air scent dogs always got gassed out so fast. You know.
Well, but that's their job, is to cover very large areas.
Oh yeah. And I was trying to find one of the reports that I signed off on because it went to court, but the starting search area was roughly 180 acres of open fields. So we're like, we're going to put both air scent dogs out here at the same time. We're going to put one on the north end and one on the south end, and you know, we'll see what happens, because we had never had a search area that large. It was just open field.
Yeah, well, that's when you start quartering it out and clearing it pie piece by pie piece. And air scenting is the way to go in that aspect because, like I said, they're trained to follow the particles and the human scent particles through the air, which is a lot easier and faster when it comes to large areas like that. So they're great. Air scenting is very great, very good for the wilderness aspects, a lost hiker, that type of stuff. And even really disasters in urbans, they've got their place for it too in those situations as well. I think personally, air scenting is probably the most versatile of them all.
Most definitely. We used to use the air scent dogs for all kind of stuff. We would use them to clear off areas. So if we had someone that was potentially going to turn into a cadaver case, but we don't know because we haven't found them yet, we would clear areas with the air scent dogs, and we would cover a lot of ground. And we would typically run one dog and then come back like 20 or 30 minutes after that and run a second dog through there.
To double check it.
Say, hey, look, you know, the left side of the road, there's nothing there. We can shift all the ground the boot guys over here to the left, to the right side of the road, and search over here on ground looking for any signs of people walking or whatever. But this side over here, we're clear. Like there's nothing here as far as a live person. So, and I think one of the biggest struggles in the community as far as emergency services goes is they don't know what they don't know. So they don't know, they just hear, hey, let's call a dog. And so they automatically assume they're going to get a tracking dog, but they don't know what to look for. They don't know what to ask. They don't know the differences and the disciplines. Like Lee asked was, difference between tracking and trailing. And Dwayne said one's nose on the ground, one's up in the air. And there's a difference in trailing and tracking. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people always have is, well, I want a tracking dog. Well, in the search world, you're better off to call yourself a trailing dog because very few times.
Well, okay, so I want to clarify the tracking and the trailing. So both of the disciplines, their noses are on the ground.
Yes.
You will see a trailing dog, what we call periscope up, but their nose is on the ground 90% of the time. The difference between a tracking and trailing, and the best way I have figured out how to explain this, is a tracking dog, their job and their discipline is to track footstep by footstep, precise on the trail the whole time. That is a true tracking dog. They're tracking human scent, crushed vegetation, disturbance in the dirt, i.e. da-da-da. That's what they're tracking. Trailing, and they're going to go exactly where the victim or whoever is walking. Trailing is their nose is on the ground. They're tracking the human scent as well, the crushed vegetation, this, that, and the other. They will periscope for a little bit of air scent. And in that, at trailing, so if you have a victim that is taking a circle, and they're walking literally a circle, a tracking dog is always going to be behind them, tracking them, because they're tracking precise footsteps. A trailing dog will cut that circle in half and go straight to that person.
Yes.
So that is the best way I can describe to you the difference.
And one of the ways I used to explain it to new handlers is you have a light wind, a light, 2 mile an hour crosswind, and you're in an open field. A very well trained tracking dog is going to be exactly where you see that crushed vegetation and taller grass. An air scent dog may be 3 or 4 feet off to the side in the direction that the wind's going, but they're both doing the exact same thing. It's just one
how they're doing
precise, and the other one is I'm in the general area. And
again, they both have their places. Tracking dog, there's more of a time constriction on tracking because it is so precise, where the air scent dog, again, they're out there, they're running, they're covering large areas very fast. And so for me, having both on scene is like the perfect pairing.
I used to always pick at some of the young handlers too. They would say, why do you run a trailing dog? And I was like, because I'm not an idiot. When my trailing dog comes up on that giant pile of brush that said homie from the sheriff's office climbed through to try to get away, my dog's going around it, and so am I. And I'm not picking briars out of her fur for the next 2 hours. So
you must have seen Bailey's video of just covered, absolutely covered. He wasn't black and white no more. He was just more gray burr stickers.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was horrible. Absolutely horrible. But, it is what it is. And I think, again, that goes down to the nerve strength and the hunt and the drive. You want that dog that has zero hesitation going into those types of environments. and because they have one job and they're going to do their job and they're not going to be deterred from it. And that's a great dog.
We always laugh that, we always say firemen are lazy because, I'm a fireman. And somebody was like, well, your fireman's dog is lazy. And I was like, you're right. She sees that big old ditch right there and she'll look around and she'll look up the hill and be like, you know what, there's a bridge over there. And she would literally go up there and kind of air scent around the bridge a little bit and then work her way back down to where we were. And then be like, all right, I'll go back to tracking now, Dad. Like, it just cracked me up, the stuff that Foxy used to do. Just to say, no, I'm not going through that water. It's too cold. I'll go up here and go across.
I think it's funny how, every dog has its personality, and how they do things, and it's just their little quirks. And unless it's detrimental to how the dog is performing, I tend to just let them have their little quirks.
Oh yeah.
So, Bailey's is bunny hopping. He will literally bunny hop da, and the whole time he's working that cone and trying to get that scent cone, especially if he'll just sit there and bunny hop, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he looks so ridiculous right now. And they're like, he's not even working. I'm like, yes, he is. I promise he's working. He's bunny hopping it, but as soon as he catches that first edge of that scent cone, that bunny hop just completely goes away, and that tail is straight up. And that's what I was telling you the other day when we were talking. He is just so easy to read.
We had a little Australian Shepherd named Pippin, and this mug was a absolute rat on acid. When he hit that scent cone, he was gone. He was a phenomenal air scent dog. Mm-hmm. But you could always tell when he ran out of the air scent because his head would go up and look over his shoulder, but he would continue running in the direction he was until his brain caught up, and then he would slide. He'd like drift and slide and just start kicking and go back the other way. And I always laughed. I'm like, Pippin, if you would just slow down one split second, you wouldn't burn 1,000 calories making one U-turn 100 times.
It's that immediate 90. Bailey kind of does the same thing. When he is in true scent, I mean, he is gone. And to keep up with him, because he's 100% off lead, and keep up with him, I'm like, and I see it coming. I got the pack on. I'm carrying my water, and I'm like, oh Lord, here it comes. And I'm like, can we just get over this hill before we start running? That'd be great, But yeah, he is definitely gone. But I've also trained him. Again, work the dog in front of you, train the dog in front of you. He's not a huge barker, never has been. So his final alert is the refine, and he will refine 8 times until I can get there. He just back and forth.
It's funny you mentioned that, because the search group I'm working with here locally, we have a dog. All the air scent dogs, they asked me, they're like, what would you rather have in the field? And I said, well, when I was over the search team, I always wanted the refine, because I tried to put myself in the mindset of a lost 10-year-old girl in the woods, and this random dog is sitting 10 feet away from me and just consistently barking. It's going to make me want to run away. And then the dog chases you, and then there's a potential for a higher drive dog to nip, or worse, or not that any search dog is going to bite and hold, but a high drive dog is going to be a high drive dog, and it's got teeth and it's going to bite. So there's always a potential, no matter what you do. So I always want to refine. It's just me. And years ago, when I was in the search team, I came up with this 2-piece place board, and I don't know if you've seen it on any of my social media, but it's a low profile Skinner box made out of 2x2s and some plywood. And then there's a smaller piece of the exact same thing inside of that. And we used to use it to teach the refine. The larger one would be at our victim. The smaller one would be at the handler. And it always gave the dog a nice tangible relatable item between the two of like, oh, I just go between these 2 points and I get all the cool food in the world. So I only got to use it once with the search dogs, and it worked really well. And as our little team here continues to grow, I'm eager to use it with the few air scent dogs we have, just to see if it's a good training tool or if it was just a one-off thing with Pippin.
I think it would be overall a great resource. Bailey, again, he was just he naturally did the refind. That just naturally came to him, and I think that boiled down to a little bit of handler separation that he had. So it was always that checking in. He would go, he would range, but he just naturally always came in and check in, and I'm like, search, and then he'd range. So I played with it, and that's where we ended up with the refine, and it just came naturally to him. I really did not have to train it whatsoever. And he in the search world with canines, he spoiled me so much of how easy he is and how quick he learned things. Even though we had to go out of the box on a lot of his training, he was just on it. And then I get some of these other dogs and I'm like, oh, why aren't you getting it? Yeah, what's wrong with you? Why can't you get it the second time?
Yes. Yes.
So you just have to remember, it's like, every one of them's different.
Yeah, we've got a genetically, I laugh. I said, genetically we have a group of people that understand what it takes, and genetically a group of dogs that bring it to the table. So it's nice to have.
I think the team that you're putting together is going to be definitely a good one and a solid one for sure with what you've told me so far.
I know whenever you make your trip back out to North Carolina, maybe in the summer, we'll have to plan ahead.
Like I said, I'm planning on being there to kind of see how everything else is going, but May is out of the question because May is Oklahoma's that's a month you don't plan nothing because you're gonna be working, unfortunately. And then June, I was planning on the 1st of June is really when I was hoping to get that back that way. So, but definitely going to be coming to see you and see what you got going on and where you guys are at in the progression of everything for sure.
No, I'm going to be putting Obi on HRD. So he's previously a narcotics dog, but he hasn't done that in 4 or 5 years. And I was like, well, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel and teach him something different. I'm just going to imprint him on some HRD and roll on with the day.
As I say, he's already got the foundation. It's just imprinting him on a new scent.
Yeah, and he's such a fun dog too, because I got him out of the truck the other day and I sat on the tailgate after he got done peeing. He come up to me and I pointed to the scent boxes and I was like, go find it. He just trotted over there like, yep, it's another day at the office, Dad, and searched all of them and come back to me and I was like, good boy. Such a lazy way to send the dog to search. He just got done. I didn't even look up from my phone scrolling on social media. I was just pointed in that general direction. Was like, go find it.
Well, but again, I think, outside of verbal, you have to have your hand signals without the verbal. And I don't think people understand how crucial that is in SAR canine handling. Because you're not always going to be able to verbalize with the dog, i.e., especially in urban situations. You've got your hand signals, your directionals, which are crucial in urban situations, and it's the safety of the dog.
I've told a lot of these guys here, you can have all the, don't stress obedience and kill the dog's drive to be here. The only obedience exercise you need to have that is absolutely concrete beyond anything is a down. Because if your dog's
Emergency stop.
200 feet away from you, when you yell down, yeah, that dog needs to bounce their chaps off the ground right then and there. I was like, other than that,
And it's a safety thing for the dog. It could potentially save their life. So
I've tried to express to them as wholeheartedly and as deep as I can that, you and I've talked, you have to be a responder first and a canine handler second. Because once the dog has done their part, now it's on you. You can't just back up 10 feet and say, all right, I found him. It's y'all's job now. Because you may only have one.
You kind of can.
Yeah, I mean, you can. But I've told people there's been many times where it's been me and one other person, and we have
for sure.
We have 20 minutes until somebody can get there with a vehicle to extract us. So you're not only
You have
not only a dog.
You have to have the foundation. Yeah. And I think that's crucial, and we talked about this as far as, having that foundation as the first responder, having the knowledge behind ICS and your basic medical, and because if you're the first one there as a canine, you're going to be the first one there. Medical is always either waiting for you to say, hey, we found, this is our location. They're waiting for that communication. Because you're not always going to have a paramedic, EMT, or whoever flanking you and running behind you. They're going to wait at command post and wait for you to, do your job. So you could potentially come across, a situation of you've got to do something as soon as you see them. And you have to have that basic knowledge of how do I proceed forward until X, Y, and Z does get here.
Yeah, and
it's not just about jumping in and handling a dog.
And I've also stressed to them that if you're working with random Joe Blow fire department from 4 states away, you don't know their capabilities and they don't know yours. So if one of them gets hurt, all right, you've got to stop your operation and you've got to help take care of that. Or if you get hurt and they don't know anything about medical or, basic first aid, then you've kind of got to tell them what to do. So there's always that component of something taking place outside of working the dog is a high probability because you're in an unstable environment that no one knows. And I'm sure you've been in the situation as much as I have been. Hey, we're sending you to XYZ. Okay. Who's there? We don't know. Where are we going to be meeting at? Probably a parking lot around a truck. And you get there and there's no facility, there's no logistics set up. So the environment that you're walking to is completely blind. You don't have a place to sleep. You don't have food. You don't have any communications. You're the first boots on the ground in that environment. So what are you walking into? And as a responder, you're trained to see more than, you look at a structure and you're looking at, okay, is that sound structure? Can I walk on it? Can I walk around it? Are there power lines? Are they live? Where's the transformer? How close are we to it? Because that's going to play a factor in it. And
I think it's as a first responder in that aspect is, being first it's being able to do risk assessment fully. And it's exactly what you were just saying. It's not just, oh, well, I've got to pop the door and let's go find da-da-da. You literally have to assess everything.
Oh yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who want to jump into the SAR community who think, okay, I'm just going to handle the dog and I'm not going to have to do anything else. And they don't realize that, when me and Maestro got deployed to a mudslide one time, our first 3 days, we shared the same 3/4 sheet of plywood with another dog handler from Texas. And we used some tarps and some jackets that we found as a blanket, and that was it for the first 3 days. You know, we robbed food where we could rob food, and that was it, because they were like, we're going to put you guys as far in as we can get where we think there's people still there, but we don't have a clue. So let us know what you need. Good luck.
Well, and that's I mean, North Carolina was kind of the same way. I'm sure, you know, with people driving by, I'm sure there's somewhere, some out there. I have a picture of me and Bailey floating in the internet world. I can almost guarantee you, of literally being in the middle of a church parking lot, passed out in the middle of the. I got my pack as a pillow. He's on me, and I am out. We're out. You sleep where you can, when you can.
Yeah.
And
like,
so.
Lee said that's scary, not knowing what you're walking into. When
You don't know. And North Carolina for me was, I had a sense of a heads up. You, in that situation, and I'll just use that because that's the most recent, is you, even though I had people on different task forces that were already there, I had a heads up of what I was walking into. You still don't know what you're walking into until your boots are on those ground, you know. And so it comes with adaptability and mental fortitude and knowing how to do risk assessment and making a plan and being quick on your feet. And again, that's where we've talked about this. This is where ICS comes in, and having that chain of command and having things that how things are set up and should flow. It just helps everything going.
You know, one of the things I used to tell my handlers is, when you show up as a dog handler, you are being looked at as the most tactile person there, because you are running a very, very small specialty that is kind of a quiet professional. Nobody, if you're not in the dog community, you don't have a clue how dogs work. You don't know where to find them. They just show up. And so it's on you to say, no, I'm not running my dog because this environment is not conducive for them or myself or y'all. And this is why. And it's also important for you to ask all of the questions. And sometimes, you know, other agencies might get short with you, and you just have to remind them, hey, look, man, I just got off a plane an hour ago, got in a helicopter, rode 30 to 45 minutes into here, and got dropped off. And, you know, we ran into that when we went to get the heart patient. We went to land with the pilots that flew you. We went to land in one spot, and the ground gave way underneath the helicopter on the left-hand side. And so we all kind of had to scoop and pick ourselves up there for a minute, and then we picked another field. But the field we picked was 4 miles from where we wanted to be. So
yeah.
So we had to hike that in, and are you wearing the right shoes? Are you doing this? Are you doing that type thing?
It is. I mean, so outside of, you know, handling the dog, you're responsible for the team that's with you, the flankers, this, that, and the other, the communication back to command post, you know, being able to assess the situation and assign different tasks to different people within the team and what their job is. So you do kind of take the leadership role once the K9 handler has been activated. You take the leadership role within that team that you're going out and doing the search with. You're the point of it all. But it's also one of those things to where, like I wanted to hit on, you know, is this an environment that I can or willing to run my dog in? You are your number one advocate for your K9. And you have to be okay with saying, no, I'm not running him. or her, it's too dangerous, X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to do it this way because it's my responsibility as the handler to figure out how to do it the best way and the safest way. It might take longer, but my job is to make sure everybody comes out. My number one job is to make sure my dog and me come out.
Yes, and you have to be comfortable walking into a situation blind to any information that you get. But you also have to be comfortable in the sense of saying, that hair right here on the back of my neck is telling me I don't need to go this way. And so we're not going to go this way. And a lot of people are very conflicted in the mindset of, well, I need to be able to walk in and just drop in this situation and work, but I already said I would come in here and work, so I don't want to go back and say, I'm not working over here, I'm going to work over there. And I told the individuals here, once we get you guys certified, if y'all go to an environment and you are not comfortable running your dog and said agency gives you any flack, give them my phone number and tell them to call me. Because I don't have a problem telling anyone at any given point in time, if my handler does not want to run their dog there, then they will not run their dog there, and we'll pull our dogs out and you can have whatever kind of crap show you want to have. But I trust my handler in saying that if this environment is not conducive, then we're not working there. That's the
Right.
end.
I mean, and again, because you have to advocate for the dog. And again, it's not necessarily as a handler, even though you have those, like, I'm not doing that. You've got to be able to be flexible and say, okay, let's take that step back and reassess the situation. Can I do the job in a different way? And if you can do it, then great, do it. Again, it might take you extra time or a little bit of more resource to do it, but the job is going to get done. But you also have to stand 10 toes down of like, no, this isn't going to happen either way, and be comfortable of being the advocate and saying no.
And I think that's where, when people hear the term, you gotta, it's like I told the police officers when they were in school, you're a police officer first and a dog handler second. Don't forget that. You've got 10 years experience telling you not to walk through that dang door because something's going to happen. Listen. And I tell the search handlers too, if you're looking at this hill and there's 4 trees that have been knocked down laying on top of the wooden bridge, and you take 2 steps on it and it creaks and moves more than you're willing to allow it, find another way. Walk through the ditch, call and be like, hey, this bridge is no good. Here's the coordinates for it. We need to go somewhere else.
Well, I mean, one of the number one rules is don't become the liability.
Yes.
You can't be, the rescuer cannot become the victim number 2. And again, that's checking your own ego and making sure that you're keeping your ego in check. You're keeping that to where you're being able to assess it in the most logical way and still get the job done.
Whoops.
With little rest and food.
So I was just telling Lee, like, we'll get there because then the next topic is you and your dog's health. So I've had to explain to some people in Western North Carolina, the flooding was, again, we all know it was far worse than what it ever meant to be. I saw it from the ground. I saw it from the air over the course of the whole week. And there's, I think, 15 dogs that have died from search dogs. Whether, I don't know if they're state dogs, civilian dogs, or if they were search dogs that showed up with a collar that said Lassie and hopes and high dreams. So it's rumored that 15 have died. I know a few have, but the number I see the most is 15. And people are like, well, do these people not take care of their dog? And I've had to remind them what is in floodwater and how much goes into the ground that we don't want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
A lot and a lot.
Everything. Yeah.
So
everything.
I know several people that I've deployed with over the years in other parts of the world and the country have all been sick, gotten sick in some way, form, or fashion. I've had it myself. And Maestro's gotten hurt and sick being elsewhere. And we've had to work through those things. And so having a physically fit dog and person and a mentally sound handler, knowing that and saying, okay, I know I can come in here, I know I can get contaminated, I know I can get sick, and my dog can get injured or sick, but we will be okay and we will get through it, is a huge step in the health of your team. And I think the largest capacity that is misunderstood in that is the mental health side of that. Okay, now we're sick, now we got to get through this.
Well, so PFA, psychological first aid, and that goes from not only yourself prior to deployment and getting there, but also while you're there and afterwards, for yourself and for the team. If you're not mentally sound, you're not gonna you have to be resilient in the aspect, especially while you're deployed. But I will say there's certain deployments that are harder than the others, and you can be as mentally resilient and as strong, and have the best PFA, and it's still going to mess with you.
Absolutely. I've got years and years and years since 2008 in emergency services full time, and recently we're in the SAR training and we got to talking about that. Someone's like, well, how do you stand being away, or how do you stand XYZ situation? And I've told them the hardest thing I've ever done in emergency services is tell a new mom of 3 weeks that her baby's dead and they can't see him because of the coroner. Mm-hmm. Also, the hardest thing I've ever done is take my dog into an area and knowingly going to find someone's loved one's body, and that I'm going to be the one to find it and I'm going to be the one to tell them, but at the same time have a absolute gratitude that I have been given the opportunity to bring closure to that individual. So as much as you want to think about the bad thing and how am I going to work through that, if you focus on the end goal and being able to bring that closure in some way, shape, or form, or fashion, it helps that mental side of
I'm here. It does help balance it out.
Purpose.
Yeah, it does help it balance it out. And first responders, they need the mental outreach and the help just as much as anybody else. I think even more so to some degrees, because the compartmentalization of doing the job and the mental aspect, the mental toll, the emotional toll, the physical toll, you have all these things, the stress and and not being able to process that because you compartmentalize it so well that one bubbles over. And where you, as a first responder, you have that thing of like, well, we're the ones that are supposed to be rescuing and helping everybody else. Who do we turn to help and rescue us? And so we tend to internalize it a lot more because we're the rescuers. We're the people that go save. We're not the ones that go and turn and saying, hey, I need help. And that's probably the biggest thing that a lot of first responders deal with.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you ever heard of Travis Howes. He was one of the Charleston firemen involved in the Charleston sofa store fire, and he lost 9 good friends in that fire, and he volunteered to be on the crew to go get them, and now he travels and teaches this mental health class, and he does a phenomenal job with it, and he's made such a heavy impact in the industry. One of the things I've done is I've done the EMDR, the eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy. And I always joke, I've done it twice, and I joke with some of my friends all the time, like, you can hand me any situation you've got in life, I'll take it square on the chin. That doesn't mean it's going to suck, but I'll take it square on the chin and walk away from the situation, because I've been in worse situations mentally, and I've been in worse situations physically, but it ain't killed me. So whatever you got, we'll find a way to work through it. I've got the friends, I've got the connections, I got people that have their phone on 24 hours a day. So whatever you need to bring.
Yeah. And I think that, having that network and having the people that you can confide in, because it boils down to, you've got people that are like, well, I'm here for you. And that's great. And I appreciate that, but you can't relate. You don't know. It's like talking to a wall. I might as well talk to a wall, because you have no idea. And it's not that I'm dismissing, or that they're just being dismissed in their care, but it's hard to unload when they have no common ground of what you're talking about or what you've seen.
I went back and looked at it, because I knew we were going to talk about this. The night that I reached out to you and was like, hey, I want to tell you about this search group that we got going down, and cool things. We were on the phone, Elle and I were on the phone for 3 hours and 52 minutes. And 99% of that phone call was talking about the Western North Carolina deployment and just decompressing things. Yeah. And
yes.
and frustrations. And because no matter what, there's always frustrations as a responder. You call and say, I need XYZ. And they're like, yeah, good luck. We ain't got an answer for you. And they hang up. So, and just decompressing everything else involved in that situation. But as a handler and a responder, I have always thought that your mental health, your mental physical health, your programming of your brain and how you train your brain to handle those things, and what you're willing and not knowing what you're willing and not willing to deal with, is far more important than your physical health. Our previous search team, I call her young lady, the young lady that handled Pippin, when I left the team, she was 74 years old, and she would outwork majority of us on the team 10-1. She ran that dog for 3 days and 80,000 acres of game land in sleet and freezing rain the whole time, and never once complained, never once slowed down. And I missed the crap out of her, but I got to talking about her the other day. Somebody's like, man, how did she just work through that? And I was like, well, she lived in 9 different countries by herself as a young person in the military, and then traveled all over the world in other groups and stuff that she done. And I think physically her body could have said, no, we're done. But mentally, she just wouldn't allow it, because she knows, hey, I can do this. I'm still perfectly healthy to go do this. And
she had the mental fortitude to do it. Yeah.
So I've tried to stress to people, your physical part of handling a dog is 25%. The rest of it is all mental, because you're going to see crap and deal crap and have people, I'm sure you dealt with it when you got to the fire department up there, that, hey, you showed up and they were like, hey, we need help. What can you bring? Our hands are empty and we have nothing to offer you. And you turn into a pivotal point of communication when all you did was show up to run a dog.
And that's kind of exactly how it happened with Frank. And I mean, those people literally, and we talked about this, just absolutely became family. And but that whole situation, they had no idea what they were supposed to do, or even what step one was. And the chief there, bless his heart, you could just see how overran he was, and like, what do I do? I'm being bombarded, da da da. And he kind of, I was sitting there, and he was venting ish to me, and I just looked at him. I said, "Do you want a solution, or do you want me to listen to you?" And he was like, "I guess I want a solution." I was like, "Well, this is X, Y, and Z. This is what you need to do. You're now a POC. You're now, point of contact and point of distribution. So this is what you've got to do, blah, 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 blah." And I helped him, get that going. And even when I came back, I was still helping with the POD because Yancey and Mitchell were still buried. Frank was one of the closest ones there, so they were the POD for that area and receiving the donations and everything else. And it was funny because we had what we called a ghost crew come in, and they came into the fire department and was kind of wanting to see what was going on as searchers. And they looked at what was going on, and then they saw me running around, and they're like, they're like, "Yeah, we need to talk to her."
Yeah, you look important.
That's exactly what they're like. She's the important one. Forget the chief. We need to talk to her. And so they were a pivotal point too. They did a lot of work, but I do want to touch base on Leah's thing as far as how do you condition. What was the question, honey? I'm trying to find it.
To your dog and you to go for multiple days.
Okay, so really,
dog to work for multiple days with little to rest or food.
it is what it is. When you have such a high drive dog, work is work. That's their playtime, so they're always wanting to work. But at the same time, as a handler, you have to be cognitive of the fatigue and the stress of that dog. Are they showing signs of that? Are they slowing down? Do they have external stresses? There's absolutely a thing of, dogs do get depressed when they're just constantly, not having good finds. We've seen it in 9/11, saw it at Katrina.
There is a book written from one of the 9/11 handlers that talks about they cleared the building across from the World Trade Center that collapsed, and they were it was a decompression for the first responders and a decompression for the dogs at the same time, because they were having those guys hide and reward the dogs. And so those guys were having a good time doing it, and the dogs were having a good time. So
yeah, it's a thing. And so, how do you externally condition for that? You don't. There's really no way you can, other than, I'm training every day, this, that, and the other. But deployment and training you need your training, you need your continuous training for deployment. But deployment is always going to be different. You can't train for a deployment per se, as when it comes to the little sleep. Where's the food coming from? As a handler, you're responsible of having food with you, but you never know how long you're going to be out, so you could, run out.
And one of the things I did as a handler, I always had in my booklet that went with me was the foods that my dog, I know for a fact my dog can have these foods and it doesn't upset their stomach. But I also had that broken down into slow burning proteins and fast burning proteins. What can I throw in my pack to get my dog through the day? And what can I give my dog supplemental tonight that's going to help them tomorrow and rebuild their muscles and all that fun jazz? And like we've talked, clean water will make or break what you're doing out there for your dog.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, it's just you can't you can train to train, but for a true deployment, there's no true conditioning. You can do the best as far as endurance, this, that, and the other, but it's just it takes a toll. It does take a toll on the handler and the canine in different ways.
The one of the big things I tell people all the time is look at the operational window. If you have a 12-hour operational window, or for like, what we did at the airport in the off days when I was hanging around the hangar and stuff like that, I didn't sit down. I made it a point. I would lean against something, but if I sat down, I wouldn't sit down longer than 10 minutes because I knew I'd get tired and I'd fall asleep. So it was knowing, I mean, I've done it for over 10 years now. So I know my breaking point of, okay, I need to get some sleep, or I need to sit down, or I need to do something, because if you work past your body's ability and say your ability is 16 hours, at 20 hours you're going to start walking around like a drunk and making decisions like a drunk, and that's where people get killed. So it goes back to that mental game of, no, me and my dog are out, we're done, call us tomorrow.
Well, I mean, again, at the airport, I did it at the airport. I think one of the pallets was my pillow at the airport. I literally, I'm not even lying. You sleep when you can, and you take those moments, even if it's a 10-minute cat nap, a 5-minute cat nap, and you've got helicopters over here, and you've got people yelling over here. When you're in those situations, you're able to just cut it all off and take that 5-10 minutes or however long you have. And at that time, the dogs are more apt to just lay there with you because they've realized, like, okay, I get to have my moment as well. Bailey tend to be, because he's so young on top of it, and he's more high energy than the labs and the goldens and this, that, and the other. So I'd be laying there sleeping, and I got the end of the lead, and he's just walking around saying hi to everybody, and I'm just
Hang on.
so yeah, just hanging on. Just bring him back when he's done. So
I used to tell everybody I went, if you see Maestro sleeping, please, for the love of all things holy, do not bother either one of us, because
yes,
high drive Malinois, if a high drive Malinois is passed out in his Stokes basket with his head hanging off the side and his tongue hanging out, for the love of God, don't touch him.
yeah, and that's Bailey. Bailey was, very rarely he would take his moments. I think the first 2 days he didn't sleep very much. And again, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is, like, helicopters, conditioning to helicopters. How do you condition? How do you train for deployment on, being exposed to being dropped out of helicopters and everything else? Unless you have that available, which 9 times out of 10 you're not, you're gonna find out. It's like one of the pilots was like, how's the dog saying? He was talking to the team in the hole. Well, how's the dog's gonna do with the helicopters? And we're like, well, we're about to find out.
Yeah, we don't have a clue, but
yeah, so and I was very proud of all of them. They all rebounded really well. And as soon as we got dropped in right outside of Frank, I mean, we hit the ground running. So
I'll give Maestro credit. We went to a deployment, and they were like, "Hey, we got a Black Hawk spun up on the flight line for you guys. They're waiting on y'all." And out of the 4 Malinois that walked out there, he was the only one that just walked beside me like it was an everyday trip to Lowe's Home Improvement, and just walked across the flight line, walked across the tarmac, walked across the next flight line, and we approached the front of the bird, waited on the pilot to give us the okay, walked around to the side, and he the guy on the crew chief kind of stuck his hand out, and Maestro left me. I just let go of his leash because we were like 15 feet from the bird, and he just hopped up in the back and leaned up against the crew chief like, hey, homie, what you doing? And I was like,
yeah.
man, I don't know what to tell you, boss. Like, he's good. And, I was going to say this, Beaks, if your dog trusts you and you've trained the right way, the number of times that Maestro would be on a rubble pile or an unstable environment, and he would turn his head and look at me, and I'd be like, I just throw my hands up. You're good. That's all I'd say to him. He'd go right back to working. So me and him had that. I trained him from a puppy. I took him at 8 weeks old and trained him from a puppy, and I'm glad I did because I got to see all the cool things in training a search dog and what goes into it. But it also built such a phenomenal relationship between he and I, because I could look at him and be like, hey, we're good. And he'd go right to sleep. On the way, the hour flight home on that deployment in the Black Hawk, I've got a picture of him floating somewhere. He is half asleep in the chair, leaning across the packs, but his head is kind of like flopped, but it's laying on some of the center console that the pilots have books in, like looking at him like, are we there yet, guys? And just relaxed as relaxed can be. His tail's just flopping in the wind. There's no control over it. So
I think that's, having Bailey since, literally the day he turned 8 weeks old, it's a whole nother level of bond. And I found two instances where I truly found his limit of like, he was done, because he is literally a dog on crack. When all the dogs were passed out and couldn't go no more, Bailey was like, oh, I still have 3/4 of a tank left. Can we go? Can we go? And this last deployment, when Carl came and picked us up and we got on the jet to come back home, Bailey, he just looked at me and literally flopped down on the floor and did not move until we got home. Like, he was like, okay, I'm done. It's like he knew, my job's done. I can finally relax.
I think the most tired I've ever seen Maestro for a Malinois, we got deployed on a mudslide, and we worked 12-hour operational period for 8 days straight. And oh boy, I give him credit. He was 5 years old at the time. He had just come off of his second neck injury, and he worked. But when he fell asleep in the hangar waiting on the plane to come, he was out. And a couple times I had to like stare at him to make sure he was still conscious and breathing in some way, shape, or form, whether it be here or Neverland. But they sent a prop plane to get us, which is loud anyway. And I went over and nudged him, and he kind of raised his head, looked at me, and laid his head back down. I was like, all right, whatever. So I nudged him again, and he just opened his eyes that time. And so I was like, fine. So I picked him up and carried him, as limp as he was, tired of sleep, into the plane and set him on the floor, and he didn't move on a 9-hour flight. I had to like wake him up when we got close to landing, and I was like, bro, you good? Like, you all right?
And that's when we got back, it was about 2 days that I really made it an effort to try to keep Bailey's, how do I say this? Keep him as calm as possible. Keep him chill, and coming home to his brother, Charlie, my other dog, this, that, and the other, and, him being excited, and just quickly how, because he's young and a border collie, they rebound quickly. But I really wanted him to just chill, because we had been in some very hairy situations, and I know the stress on his body. It wasn't just mentally for the dog, the canine, but it was the stress on the body, the stress on the hips, the stress on the shoulders, just overall. And again, it goes back to her questions, like, how do you condition that? Well, for me and my approach, and you guys know this, it's the canine fitness side of things and making sure that those, you know, they are being conditioned and worked properly, not outside of training, to make sure that the body can handle that kind of stress, because it's not just an hour of two training here. These are 8 to 10 hour days of continuous work.
And I'll follow that up with, so if you've seen some of my social media posts, I've posted, have a good night, bud. I've posted that this will be our 5th or our 6th training session. And while the training session itself may only be 5 to 10 minutes, the dog is conditioned to work multiple times during the day mentally. Like, oh, we're working again? Okay, cool. And so one of the things we did at Search Dogs is, yes, we're going to err on the side of caution and manage the situation, but it's 115-degree heat index outside. We're going to go work. It's pouring down rain and it's freezing outside. We're going to go work. So no matter if training is Saturday at 1 o'clock, short of a hurricane or a tornado coming in that's headed our direct path, we're going to go work, because we're going to get called to work. You know, when you get deployed to an environment, just as much when you came to North Carolina, the hurricane wasn't completely gone yet. We still had the southern rain bands here, and something we were flying in, and something the pilots had to work around because they were not allowing pilots to fly in IFR rating. So we had to fly everything visual. So instead of taking the direct path, we're having to scoop through the various valleys and go way up towards Virginia and Tennessee border and then come back down. So we have to do the same thing with our training. If it's Saturday at 1 o'clock, then it is what it is. Whatever the weather, that's what we're going to go work in, because the dogs will be conditioned to work in whatever environment we throw them in weather-wise. And that's one less stressor that you have as a handler working your dog. It adds stress because you're working your dog in a slick and cold environment, but at the same time, okay, I know my dog is working this.
Your dog can perform the duties that it needs to, because it's already been exposed and has already showed you per training that they can still do their job in those environmentals.
Yes, and it's that is a large portion of getting your dog conditioned to work in whatever. And you know, Beak said earlier, it's hard to show your dog every picture like the helicopter. And one of the things I did with Maestro when he was a puppy, I would take him to the fire station and I'd put him in his crate in between the trucks when we did our daily morning truck checks. And when we cranked the chainsaws, I would lay the chainsaws on top of his crate, or I'd lay him next to it, or we'd intentionally put him on the back bumper of the truck that's rattling and making all kind of noise. And I put a bowl of food right there, and I told all the guys, hey, every time you walk by his crate, dump a handful of food in the bowl. Like, I don't care if you intentionally walk by it 5 times just because you want to feed my dog. I don't care. Just put food in there every time you walk by. And it gets that dopamine release in his head of like, hey, anytime I'm around all this stuff, food just rains in from the heavens, and it's a fantastic day. And that's one of the reasons he was such a phenomenal working dog in environmentals, because nothing bothered him at all. It's like Obi. Nothing really bothers Obi. He's just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is where we're gonna go work. All right, check the box.
Yeah.
And that's that mental conditioning. But I appreciate your time tonight and all of your travels.
Yeah, well, I'll be home, I think Wednesday, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
I work the next 2 days, and then I'll be going to Tennessee for 3 days. And then we go get our Christmas tree, and then I work the next 2 days. Well, really,
Where are you getting your Christmas tree?
there is a place called Frosty's Choosing Cut, which is in West Jefferson, North Carolina. They're one of the largest Christmas tree farms in North Carolina, and partly because they have such a massive social media footprint with this time of year. And they've done a really good job marketing and all those fun things, but they have multiple food trucks, multiple coffee trucks. Santa's there every day. They have very custom built, cool locomotive carriage things that are horse drawn to take you up and down where the trees are. But one of the reasons we go there is because they allow you to bring your dog. And if I can't take my dog, I'm probably not going. And the first year we took Maestro, and well, for 2 years we took Maestro before he died. And the second year we went, they were like, "Oh, is this the dog from last year?" We were throwing the little tree ornaments at him, and he was catching them. And we were letting the little kids throw them at him, and he was catching them. And they were having the grandest time. And we were really just killing time standing in line. And so every year I got a message from them about 2 weeks ago that asked what day we were coming up. So that's just kind of where we go
That's
now.
awesome. Well, I know that's one of the ways to continuously help North Carolina with revenue and stuff is to buy a real Christmas tree this year and from them, because North Carolina is one of the bigger suppliers for the nation, is it not?
It is. I read last year that there's around 200 tons of Christmas trees a day shipped out of Western North Carolina all over the country. And there's some places like Frosty's, they've got different size trees for where you want to be. One guy last year, he was taking a tree to a small little village they kind of got impacted a lot throughout the year with some COVID stuff. And he took a 40-foot tall, 25-foot wide at the base tree up there. And Frosty was like,
Wow.
"Yeah, we got trees to fit that. They're on the backside of the mountain. Come on." And so they kind of fit everything you need up there, and they've got so many things for the kids to do. And everything you do, with the exception like of buying your food on the food truck and coffee, is all free. So
Oh, that's awesome.
it's a really good place for kids. It's a phenomenal place for kids to go, because they've got all kind of stuff for them to do. And there is a ton of law enforcement presence up there every year. There's only usually 3 or 4 uniformed officers, but I've talked to a couple friends and they've said that that place has a large budget to have off-duty officers there throughout the day in plain clothes, just to keep people that shouldn't be around kids away and everybody else safe.
That's awesome. Now we flew, I know, going in and out of different locations, we flew over a lot of tree farms.
Yeah,
It was actually cool to see.
There's several of them that have posted, send us, scan this and send us money and put Christmas tree donation. And there's a lot of them donating Christmas trees into the western part of the state for towns and families to have. And I just seen a post today. A buddy of mine, he went and bought, I think it was 50 trees. And they've trucking all 50 of them up the mountain.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I remembered mentioning. It was like, it was when we were actually boots on the ground, I was like, Christmas would be coming up soon, and this would be the one thing that people don't realize, that it would be an easy way to keep giving back to North Carolina, because obviously we know that it's going to take a very long time.
Oh yeah, and we, one of the ways I go to Bebo's is through Newland, and every time I drive through there, and I'm like, Mel was through here in Newland.
Yeah,
I wonder if she
sure
was on
was.
this. I wonder if she was on this street that I'm standing on. 'Cause it looks pretty muddy, and I can't tell you what I'm talking about. I wonder if she was over here. I wonder if that gas station looked familiar to her.
I can't even keep track of where I knew. Okay, so Frank, Yancey, Mitchell, Newland,
All the places.
Asheville, all of it. I mean, they were all. It was just one town at one point. At what I forgot even trying to figure out where I was.
Like I told you, Western North Carolina, you have, you know, Yancey County, but there may be 70 small communities in that one county. I know, Beaks. I know I missed the detection over there. It couldn't work out for me. We rescheduled it before the same weekend, and I was like,
I came back. I'm gonna tell you, I came back with like a whole new wardrobe from every fire department. I have Banner Elk. I've got a hoodie from Banner Elk that was given to me from the fire station. I can't Frank. I can't even go down the list of like I came home with literally 4 or 5 hoodies, and I can't tell you how many t-shirts. The people there are just absolutely amazing.
yeah. And, like I told you when we talked on that phone that night, forever. Whenever you want to come back, just hit me up. We got the camper apartment out front.
I'm definitely hitting you up because I'm going to come back because I want to, like I said, there's deployments to where you feel like you walk away and you have some sort of peace and comfort, like, okay, I did my job. I did as much as I could. North Carolina, unfortunately for me, was not, I didn't get that.
There's one of the girls in our search group was largely affected by the flood, and she lives in Swananoa, and she wants to be involved because of the whole thing and having a search dog, and she's definitely putting in the work for it. But her area was hit pretty hard, and unfortunately, in my opinion, emergency management should have seen this coming. They should have seen the whole thing coming, like I was telling you when we talked that night. The reason they did it, let's build a man-made tub in the bottom of a valley and not drain it, and then here we are. But a lot of people from out of state responders and such have all said this, resonated the same thing you're saying. They feel like they came and they did work, but they didn't get anywhere. They don't feel accomplished.
No, I do. Well, I say there's that part of it to where I do feel accomplished because of, again, the closure to a degree. But overall, yeah, no. I mean, like we said, it was just, and I don't think, even going back, I don't think I'll ever get that closure or get that sense of, I did everything. I think it is what it is at this point. But going back and seeing everybody again and keeping that connection, I think is really what I'm focusing on, because more than anything.
Oh yeah, and I think what some people don't process is, like, for me, all of the flooding and everything stopped 20 minutes from my house, and my basement flooded pretty good just from excess rain here, but that was it. And I still have a large list of contacts in my phone of firemen and other people I know in the western part of the state that I still haven't heard from. And when they not send a new list, but when I see the list from EM of people still missing or unaccounted for or just unknown, I search that list, because while you, coming from Oklahoma, don't know anybody here, I do. And just the same as if I
Yeah.
came to Oklahoma for an HRD event after a tornado, you're going to know a lot of people in that area. So it's going to affect you differently versus me coming in and just checking a box and doing a job. So we had a lot of North Carolina responders, even across the state, as far, from the coast, that were like, man, I got a guy that works up here. Has anybody seen or heard from me? Like, no, man, that fire department. So there's one that a friend of mine's at, and I've talked to him, thank God. But his entire fire department, trucks, fleet, and everything, the closest truck they found was about 9 to 10 miles away downriver. The rest of the trucks, I don't know where they're at, and the whole building's gone. It's just a concrete slab. So, it'll when you come back in the summer, there'll still be piles of debris everywhere.
Oh, I expect it. There's no way there won't be, and getting there, I feel like I'm grateful that we got there as early as we did, but I feel like we got there a little too early and left too early, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, I know exactly how that feeling goes. There's times I've gotten places and I'm like, man, us and the dogs are 100% useless right now because there's nothing we can do. Everything is still absolute chaos. It's still raining. The weather is still here. The best thing we can do is
Sit and wait.
Pack up inside this building and give it another day or two, because right now we're not going to be able to do anything. We're going to get hurt. So
yeah. And then, like I said, it was leaving. I wished I could have stayed a whole lot longer. It needed to be done. I mean, matter of fact, it was last week. I still have people reaching out to me, are you available? Do you know any, dogs and handlers, that, we're still looking, and X, Y, and Z. And it's just,
I think a lot of people, and again, they don't know what they don't know. Just like don't know what we don't know. Rock Solid Malinois, this is random, but Anvil is a solid freaking dog. I love that dog. A lot of people don't know what they don't know, so they put it out on social media, hey, we need a cadaver dog, or we need supplies. And I see the cadaver dog post, and they're like, hey, we've got blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, cool. That dog is, you're putting that dog to work in an environment that is now 25 to 40 feet deep in new dirt and new mud. What good is it? Like, it's no good. Why? Because we've never trained a dog for that, and it's hard for any cadaver dog to work in 25 feet of dirt. But there's roads that were buried 25 feet, let alone houses down the valley. So what people don't understand and can't process is, yes, a dog is strong, but the dog, again, is a tool with limitations. You can't take a hammer and do the same work as a bulldozer. And unfortunately, for years to come, they're going to be moving and building, and they're going to find human remains in some way, shape, form, or fashion, or it's going to wash up further downriver, or people will just, disappear without a trace and never to be heard from again. And that is how it is.
And it's not it's to be factual in a matter of, fact with them, because you're not, I mean, it is what it is. There's such a heightened sense of emotion still that's not the answer that they want or willing to even accept. And so you come across as the bad guy and the one that's, literally holding the cross that they to bear, because they at this point they want to be mad at somebody. So you just gave them a reason to be mad at you, even though it's not your fault.
And I've had people, in EMS. You know, well, what's your name? Well, my name is Jay. Well, I hate you because of this. That's fine. You can join the list of people that have hated me for years. It's perfectly okay. But
Staying in line.
yeah, and at the end of the day, I try to remind people. Years ago, there was a structural collapse that killed 2 firemen. Well, the Mayday went out, and one of the chiefs stood at the door and would not let any more firemen go in the building. And all the firemen hated him, rightfully so. Like, we want to go get our homies. That's the guys we work with. We see their kids at the fire station all the time. Like, we want to do what we want to do. We're firemen. We go get our guys. And he said, we're not losing any more guys. The odds and practicality of us getting to them and getting them out is such a small percentage that he was willing to stand in the door and say, hey, look, we're not losing anyone else. So, and, you know, someone has to be the person to make that call to prevent further loss. Sometimes that is you.
Absolutely true.
And you have to look at that. And sometimes you just got to tell people the truth. Look, I know that the 5 houses on your street, all those families were gone and we can't hear, you know, nobody knows anything. At some point, you have to wake up and realize that this is the reality, and we can't just solve all the problems and call a really good cadaver dog in to indicate on something and then hand dig it for the next 8 days and find somebody still alive.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like Beak said, people know that side of the job. So you have to be the one to bring that news to them, or you have to be I see a lot of the posts on social media and I just don't comment on them. I just let it go.
Same.
Because it's not worth it.
I got added to so many different groups or tagged in so many. I just at some point you just have to keep scrolling, and it's not, you know, because I'm in Oklahoma. I can only do so much. And at this point, like exactly what you said, and it goes back to that mental resilience and that fortitude and just having the shoulders to carry it. Carry whatever you want to say. You know, it is what it is, but you're not going to like the answer. I'm being honest with you. I'm not going to tell you something you want to hear just to make you feel better and lie to you and say, well, I can come and help you get closure and find these people, because I don't know if I can. I'm not going to tell you I can do something if I'm not 100% sure. And in this scenario, it's exactly what you said. That whole place is hollowed ground now, and forever will be.
And like I've told a lot of people, I look at it from 2 standpoints. You know, when I run a call at EMS and I run your loved one that's now deceased, I can't do anything for them. Dead is dead, and we can't make dead any more dead. And we can't bring to life what can't be brought to life. So they're a deceased person. Now my attention turns to you as a family member of, you are now my patient. What can I do for you? And I've made phone calls for people. I've sat down. I know a guy that's like, man, I'm 28 years old and I just lost my dad. I don't know what to do. And I was like, hey man, I've lost both my parents. I understand where you're coming from. Let's go outside and sit down on the tailgate and talk about it. And he come up to me like 2 weeks, 3 weeks after that and was like, hey Jay, do you remember me? And I was like, nope, not really. Where do I know you from? And he told me, and I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, man, that conversation you had with me that night, man, that has stuck with me since then, and everything you've explained to me has happened exactly how it was going to happen. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's part of our job. Like, I can't do anything for your dad, unfortunately. So now I'm going to turn my attention to you. And the other half of that is we constantly preach, we do no harm. So
yes,
I interpret as do no harm means I'm not going to do anything that's going to hurt you as a patient. But I'm also not going to give your family a false sense of hope, because that is doing them just as much harm as if I do something over here. So it's, again, damned if you don't, but you may not like the answer I'm going to give you, but it is what it is. This is the truth. This is what we're facing, and this is what's going on. And I'm sorry, but you may never, ever in the history of the world know what happened.
Yeah.
I can't fix that.
No. And again, it's the shoulders. You got to have the shoulders to be able to, and the mental fortitude to be able to carry that and know that they're not going to like it. And human emotions are real, and they're there's no getting away from it. They have to release it on somebody, and 9 times out of 10, like I said, it's usually the person standing in front of them telling them exactly what they don't want to hear.
Oh yeah.
So it's just being able to stand there and take it, knowing that that's truly not how they feel. That's just what they need. They need to feel something. They got to point the finger for some sort of closure.
Yeah.
On it.
And like I said earlier, I can, with my wife's surgery recently, I was telling you about yesterday or whatever day it was we talked. It wasn't the answer that we wanted. However, I can take that straight on the chin and go back to work in a couple hours and deal with it, because I've had unfortunate enough to have gone through EMDR and have all the fun mental processing ways of handling life and how to compartmentalize things and deal with it appropriately. But, getting to that point was pretty rough in emergency services career. Because when I grew up in it, it was, you don't say anything to anybody. You keep your mouth shut, because if you mention that it bothers you mentally, you'll lose your career. And now it's the polar opposite. But
I think there's still some stigma to it as well. I think that, and it coming back, people are like, "Are you okay? What da 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 da?" And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, let's just forget that I even went. Like, let's just not talk about it. But again, it goes back to, yes, I understand that those people have the best interest and they want to make sure and check in that I'm okay, but it's one of those, I don't want to open Pandora's box on somebody that has no idea what I'm talking about. And I think that's why we ended up on the phone for almost 4 hours, at least from my side, because I was like, I can get it off, because at that point I had internalized and there really wasn't venting or crying on each other's shoulders. It wasn't that. It was just truly just having a conversation about the experiences and having that outlet to where you're not internalizing it.
And I always, my wife did not grow up around emergency services in any capacity, and neither did her parents, her mom especially. And her mom, I'll handle some call or something, and her mom will come up and be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, I just stare at her and I'm like, "No, but what the F are you gonna do about it?" And she just stares at me. She's like, "Well, I don't know." And I'm like, "Exactly. So why are you gonna ask me that question?"
Yeah. Well, so there is peer groups and so I do PFA for first responders as well. So it's kind of like one of those things of like, I am the one that everybody comes to. And so not only do I have to figure out my stuff of what I've just been through, but I'm also I'm also handling everybody else's and listening to them and helping them. But at what point does that circle back? So that's kind of where it's at. So yeah, we do have the peer and the PFA and stuff like that. I'm just usually the one leading it, unfortunately, sometimes.
I'm part of kind of a trial run thing that we're doing in this area. We have a primary and a secondary CISM team. Your primary CISM team is there now. We're going to talk to you every day for the first couple days and whatnot. The secondary team comes in about 2 to 3 weeks after the fact. And we reach out to you. We just randomly call you on the phone. We're like, "Hey, man,
How you doing?"
A friend of mine, he lost 4 of his high school best friends within like a 2-month period. it is probably a month went by and I called him. And I was like, hey man, what you doing? He's like, oh, riding down the road, going to the next job site. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't ask him about anything, but, just talked to him. I was like, hey man, I'm just calling, check on you, see how life's going, see, make sure you're good. I said, oh, by the way, somebody wanted your phone number as the EMS director. He wants to call and check on you. So I didn't figure you'd care if I gave it to him. He's like, oh, no, that's fine. He can reach out to me whenever. And then I seen him probably 3 or 4 months after that at a wedding. And he come up and he's like, you know something? And I was like, I mean, I know a lot of somethings. It's just whether or not they're publicly acceptable or not. But
Appropriate.
And he's like, when you called me that day, and I was like, yeah. And he said, I was having the worst damn day of my life, and you just called and broke the cycle of my thought riding down the road. And I said, well, that's what we're here for.
Mm-hmm.
And
it is. It's having that random call or that talk to get you out of the rabbit hole of your own head, pull you out of it. And it doesn't even have to be about that certain situation. It's just like you said, that random call of just, hey, how you doing?
And what a lot of people don't realize with the military PTSD, they go and deal and they leave that area. And so then they just have a tangible memory to deal with. Whereas emergency services, I drive by the same house that I pronounced a 3-month-old dead every day. When I work, drive by the house, I see those people at the grocery store. Then, we have to do Con Ed. So then, next month's Con Ed is on SIDS cases. Oh, great. Here we are. We're going to deal with this again. So it's a constant revolving door of these things coming back.
Triggers. Yeah.
And then, where I work full time in the fire service, I'm at a station by myself for 48 hours. So you have a lot of downtime to sit and ponder. And
that can be dangerous.
Yeah, it gets rough sometimes, especially on Saturday and Sunday. My shifts fall on the weekends because, man, it's a nice day outside, but I don't feel like going to do anything. I just want to sit in this recliner. So, but we got 2 other stations with people at, so we just ride around and aggravate each other.
Sometimes that's all you can do, cause ruckus and
I'm good at that.
pranks and all kinds of stuff.
I made an individual so mad the other day. I told him, I said, when I come to work here, I'm going to have a good time. You might be so mad you can't see straight, but I am going to have a good day. And I had made him so mad by 1 o'clock that he left early and went home.
I don't know if that's an achievement that you should be bragging about, or
I walked in his office. I kept flipping the keyboard. I kept flipping the mouse. I took pictures off the wall and hung them back upside down.
yeah, I would have left way earlier than noon at that point.
Poured his trash can out.
Yeah.
I talked crap to him over the intercom for the whole building.
Me and you would have been having a face-to-face, or I would have been leaving. So
He walked through the building and he said bye to everybody, looked at me and flicked me off and told me, he's like, I hope you have a calm middle of the night, and I hope you kick the shit out of the door frame with your feet. And I was like, appreciate you, man. Have a good night. And he's like, I hope you don't. But I mean, as well as I do, that's just how we work and live. So,
Well, it's the stress relief. So there's no thin skin in this field. That's for sure.
now one of them's like, he said, better have thick skin when you come to work here. And I was like, buddy, if only you knew.
It's like leather. It's double layered and stitched.
Yeah. And one of them's like, I was trying to explain to one of them, I don't care how, if I make a joke about a social media post with you and your family and I see that it gets under your skin, I'm harping on it. Like it is. Man, it is.
I think that's
and we're
Don't
running.
show me your weakness. Don't expose your weakness to me, because I will use it. Da, da, da. And it kind of goes back at, like she was saying, it's like the humor is the first responders is dark and deep. It very is. I actually sent Jeremy. It was a clip the other. I think it was yesterday. Anyway, it says, when you first meet me, you'll wonder if I'm on medication. But when you get to know me, you'll actually wonder why I'm not on medication.
Oh yeah, yeah. One of the terms used to describe me when I went to work at an agency. Some guys that I had worked with previously at another agency worked there now, and I was coming to work there part time. And one of the senior guys there, he was like, "So what can we expect?" And he goes, "He will pick on your grandmother's obituary picture, who's been dead for a long time." He was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, 100%. Like anything that he can run his mouth about, he will, and he will have fun doing it." And I was like, "Unfortunately, yes, that is me."
You give me a reason, I will.
Yeah, one of them, I've got big ears, so he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna pick on your ears," and I was like, "That's fine, homie, pick on them." So I come walking back in the kitchen with these huge tinfoil things on my ears and like binder clips hold them on. And every time he said something, I'd just scream back, "What? I can't hear you." And he was like, "Anytime I find something to pick on you about, you exaggerate that situation." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll pick on myself. There's nothing you can't say.
Well,
I haven't said 6 inches
it's
from
taking that power. Yeah, it's taking the power back. And so,
or one of them. He was like, "I'm gonna talk crap to you, and I'm gonna find something. I'm gonna just blister you until I find something that breaks you." And I was like, "Okay, cool, we can do that." And so I walked back in the kitchen completely naked and sit down in a recliner across from him. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "You said you want to talk crap, so I'm here to talk crap." And he's like, "But you're naked." And I was like, "So talk crap." And he couldn't. He just got up and walked out of the room. And I was like, "Well, that was short lived." And that sums me up as an employee and a coworker.
how many times have you seen HR?
I got kicked out of a staff meeting because I apparently insulted HR.
That's
Because
impressive.
she said, "What you do on your," this is during COVID. She said, "What you do as an employee on your day off is my business."
No, ma'am, it
Hand
ain't.
goes up. And as soon as my hand went up, I saw my supervisor like lean up out of his chair, and I was like, "Damn, I got to get this out quick before he gets over it." So she's like, "What?" And I was like, "So let me clarify this information. What we do on our day off is your business." And she said, "Yes." So is that the same for all county employees? She said, "Yes." And I said, "Then why don't you tell us about the affair you're having with the county manager sitting in the chair next to you that your husband doesn't know about?" To which I had a hand here and I had a hand here, and me in a rolly chair went out the double doors I was sitting next to. Apparently that's frowned upon.
So I'm surprised you still have a job.
Well, it was questionable for a minute.
60, somehow, some way, they're like, how do we get rid of him without a retaliation lawsuit?
Yeah. So when I turned in my 2-week notice, it said, "To whom it may concern, except," and then it had HR's name right there. And then I had parentheses beside that, "She doesn't like me." And to this day,
Yeah.
she will not speak to me.
Well,
I mean,
make your bed and.
There's around 250 of us in the room. So it happens.
I got no words, man. I got no words.
But But everyone knows that if I did something, good, bad, indifferent, I will owe up to it. I have absolutely no hesitation. So I have also called the EMS director. Hey, man. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what I said so you don't have to play the who's the jackass that said this on a call game. It was me. And this is what I said. And he goes, well, if I get a phone call, I'll give you a call. I'm like, all right, man. I just want to let you know. So it'd take the guessing work out of your day. You already know. So I've had
I always say, I'll eat my crow. I'm not gonna like it, but I like my crow fried. So
I've had multiple firemen be like, I'm going to call your boss and complain. Go ahead. I don't care. Like, I've made it very clear that I am not there. The only reason I am there is because I told an individual that as long as he is the director, I will be there to work part-time. But when he leaves, I leave. That is the only reason I'm staying. I'm not there for the money. I'm not there for anything else. I'm there because I gave my word that I would be. And I live and die on that hill. So
loyalty.
people are like, you don't, like, I haven't done any of the testing that I'm supposed to do as an EMT. I haven't opened my county email in probably 5.5 years, to the point I can't even log on to the county email systems anymore because IT kicked me out for not doing the IT training. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I show up, I clock in, I clock out, and I go home. That's all you're getting.
That's it. The bare minimum. It's because I said I would.
Yeah, but everyone enjoys it.
Yeah.
Like, I've had people get into an argument. No, I'm going to work with him today. No, I am.
No, I am. He was mine first.
Yeah. I've also walked around the building with the newly appointed county manager of 3 hours there, introducing himself to people, walking around the building wearing a surgical hairnet, big thick goggles, a water PFD, and a Nerf gun, shooting people at random. And he turned the corner, and I was like, I just pointed at him. I was like, who are you? He's like, I'm the county manager. And I was like, well, you're not my target. Move. Just walked right on by.
Move along.
Yep. So.
All right. Well, I gotta get up early.
Well, again, I appreciate your time tonight. I hope everybody else did.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Oh,
No, we'll.
sorry.
No, you good. We'll have you back on here one day with the Fit Academy stuff.
Yeah, I need to get on the ball with posting on that, like I was telling you. But
We'll do an
Nope, that-
interactive live, and me working Lucy and you yelling at me and Lucy. Don't do that. I can't. She's retarded about that.
that would be interesting. Well, I need to seriously. I think that goes into the health of the canine in SAR, but really any working discipline. I've made it very apparent. I'm a very big pusher in that, and I think it's very important. So
Oh, absolutely.
whenever,
Well, we'll schedule it.
I'm always here.
Or we'll just have you out here, whenever you come back to visit North Carolina. We'll just jump on live and do it all then.
We can do it then too. It's more of a hands-on for sure. Jeremy's dropped the ball if he's still in here.
Uh-oh. Sorry, my dog's chiropractor called me. She emailed me today and was like, so did you forget about us? And I emailed her back and I was like, no. And then she sent me a screenshot of the last time we had an appointment, and she was like, apparently so. I was like, wow.
Apparently, yeah.
You gonna be like that? That's good time.
Mr. Jeremy over here going to Tennessee and stuff instead of, take my opportunity. I don't even think he's in here.
If he is, he's silent. No, he's out. He's not even in here.
Well, enjoy the rest of your evening and have a safe
You
travel.
too. I will.
Bye.
I'll holler at you when I get back home.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.